Harry is seemingly addicted to invading his privacy, invading the privacy of his friends and families, and appearing in public places and making sure that everyone talks about it. Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. For a man who reveres his privacy, Prince Harry certainly has a knack for making himself the centre of global attention. This is a show for fearless debate, so let's have a fearless debate about Prince privacy. Harry is seemingly addicted to invading his privacy, invading the privacy of his friends and families, and appearing in public places and making sure that everyone talks about them. He's currently at the High Court in London. He's flown 5,000 miles, which is a good thing to do if you're an eco-warrior, of course, watching your carbon footprint, to attend a case which involves the owners of the Daily Mail newspaper, accusing them of breaching his privacy. He's one of many celebrities that are down there. Now, the stage of a court case is all about procedure. There are no witnesses, no evidence, no box office material. The hearings take place today and yesterday and could have passed without anyone really noticing. But Harry wanted everyone to see him. He wanted to make the front page news, and he arrived turning up with a big grin on his face and leaving with a big grin on his face, looking like he's rather enjoying it all, which is probably not the best look for someone who's wanting us to believe that he's in trauma because of the invasion into his privacy, which came just before his own grotesque invasion of other people's privacy. So it's all a bit complicated, isn't it? And he didn't slip in quietly through the side entrance like some of the others involved in this case. He chose to parade past the TV cameras, barging past some paparazzi, and march through the front gates, using the media that he loathes to invade his privacy. You see the problem here? And he's loving it. Look at him, grinning away. What a laugh. Nothing better than the cost of living crisis than watching multi-millionaires rocking up in court wanting money for invasions of privacy just after they've invaded their own. So Harry seems to me to be rather confused about his treatment by the media. It's almost like he wants to keep his privacy so he can invade it when he's invading everybody else's. Even our fair-minded peers on neighbouring networks appear to have woken up and sniffed the hypocritical coffee.
He has been taking lots of notes again today. There's no need for him to be here because all of the evidence that's being presented on behalf of the claimants is written. So it really is, the fact that he's appeared today was about sort of being seen publicly.
Of course. Well, Harry's hatred of the media was laid bare in 6 hours of media bashing for Netflix, which ironically is the same media company that just happens to have paid him $100 million and, of course, is also airing The Crown, which invades the privacy of his entire family on a minute-by-minute basis and often grotesquely mischaracterises the truth. But no matter, there's money, so he'll keep quiet about that. But there's a major flaw also in Harry's campaign against press invasions of the privacy, and it's this. He's made his own privacy a ruthless public commodity, trading in his secrets and those of his family and his friends and sometimes even the people he lost his virginity to the highest bidders. The prince who fled Britain to protect apparently his family's privacy has laid bare every tawdry detail of his private life and theirs in this tell-all memoir, from drug abuse to intimate conversations with his father, the king, at his grandfather's funeral. He gave exclusive access to images of his children to the Netflix cameras. He toured TV studios discussing his frostbitten todger to sell copies of his book. He charged royal watchers $30 each to watch a live stream of a therapy session in which he again boasted about his drug use. How much self-destruction of your own privacy can a public figure get away with before they abrogate their right to privacy? But privacy isn't really at the heart of Harry's crusade. He's made that crystal clear by selling it to the highest bidders. Now, what Harry really wants is control. He can control the narrative in Netflix shows. He can control the questions he's asked in publicity junkets. He can't control his version of the truth in his book or books. What he cannot control is a free press. And yet a free press, warts and all, good, bad and ugly, of the type we have in this country, is the very cornerstone of a democracy. And that's why Harry, who wants complete control over everything that's said and written about him, is so afraid of our free press. Well, joining me now is the broadcaster Tricia Goddard and Professor of Politics and author Matt Goodwin. OK, Tricia, you're the case for the defence. Off you go. Am I wrong about this point? I don't want to get into the minutiae of the individual cases. One of them involves the Mirror Group, and I'm sure he'll have a good old whack at me while he's doing it. I don't want to get into that because we can't for the legal reasons. Yeah. However, on the general point I'm making, which is Yeah, of course. As a member of the royal family, he's had his private life raked over the coals for decades. Of course, they all have. And in return, the others all accept that the deal is that you get the palaces, the servants, the fancy life, you're the biggest stars in the world, and the press are like an annoying buzzard on the backside of a bison. Harry sees it in a much more malevolent way. But then, of course, comes the hypocrisy of the book, the Netflix series, everything else, where he seems to just be relentlessly invading his own privacy, that of his family, that of his friends, that of people he's met on his life. How can you have your cake, your privacy cake, and eat it?
Well, I'm in a difficult position because I could say to a much lesser degree, and I'm nothing like Harry as far as profile is concerned, but I would be the same because, for instance, when I was in hospital in 2008, I think you know one of the reasons I moved to the States was I didn't have any privacy there. I didn't have privacy when I was in hospital. I had journalists trying to pretend to deliver flowers. My kids had to go through security and what have you. Now, I'd written a book about my life and I talked about my life in minutiae, and yet there was a line I didn't think it was fair to cross. Now, we all have our own lines and our own boundaries, and they might not make sense to other people. But I think, as you're right in that. If we feel we're controlling the narrative, if I wanted to talk about my hospital experience, which I did to a certain amount of degree, that's fine. If somebody wants to be underhand and pretend to be delivering flowers and get surreptitious pictures of me when I'm going through chemotherapy, that is something else. So I think this whole court case, I think, is the difference between Harry having, and you're right there, control, and alleged underhand methods of people getting another narrative. I think we all have a public face, we all have a private face.
OK. Matthew Goodwin, your response to this. Does Harry have any right to privacy now? Can he go and have court battles over his private life, given what he's now done to his private life?
Well, I think as a couple, they've made a conscious decision to put themselves out there. And I think there's something else that Harry can't control, which is what do people think about him. And if you look at the polls on Harry and Meghan, and I spend a lot of my time looking at the polls, well, I've never seen a brand collapse this hard, this quickly. Since the end of last year, both Harry and Meghan are down 40 points. We've just had a poll in America which shows he's less popular now than Prince Andrew in America.
Right.
So as a brand,
and
I
just
think...
anecdotally, I've been bouncing this latest thing off people, and they're like, let me get me straight. He's flown all the way from LA for a part of the process he doesn't need to be at, just to be in the papers, going through the front entrance, and he's laughing.
Yeah.
What kind of thing is he thinking he's representing here? What image is he putting forward?
I think they think they're the underdogs going up against the system.
But the public won't see that. They're in the middle of a cost of living crisis we haven't had in 100 years.
But
I don't think there's going to be any sympathy. Honestly, I don't. I want to talk about one woman who may be almost indefensible at this stage, which is Gwyneth Paltrow. This case, this is all over $300,000. I'm like, what are you doing? Why would she let this go to court and not settle? Let's have a little look at some of the highlights or lowlights.
May I ask how tall you are?
I'm just under 5'10".
Okay. I am so jealous.
I think I'm shrinking, though.
You and me both. I have to wear 4-inch heels just to make it to 5'5".
Well,
so
they're very nice.
Oh, thank you.
I was yelling at him.
Pretty loud. Pretty forceful.
I was pretty upset.
Right? You're small but mighty. Actually, you're not that small. And you're not trained in accident reconstruction.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Neither am I. You were wearing goggles, a helmet.
Yes.
Okay, kind of looked like everybody else on the slope.
That's always my intention.
Okay. Probably had a better ski outfit, though, I bet.
I still have the same one.
I mean, what am I watching? This is a court of law.
Where do I throw up? Where's the bucket?
And my favourite moment was when she was asked about what she'd lost from this terrible incident. She went, well, half a day's skiing. It's like, what?
I know.
Let's watch this. Here we are.
And he has deterred you from enjoying the rest of what was a very expensive vacation.
Well, I lost half a day of skiing.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
What are we watching? Why is she letting this... I've met Gwyneth a couple of times. I actually like her personally, but a lot of people have come out and spoke quite disparagingly about her. Dylan Jones, our friend who ran GQ when he said he had a nightmare experience with her trying to interview her.
I've interviewed her. She was very, very, very pleasant.
Yeah, so
I
just can't understand what part of her is wanted to contest this?
I don't get it. I've thought to myself, why doesn't she just let her insurance company deal with it? She's insured against lawsuits.
Yes.
You know, just let them deal with it. Back down. Why are you doing it? Has it been that bad of an experience that you feel that you want to be heard now?
It's crazy.
I just don't understand. I mean, they're all bonkers in there.
Yeah.
The guy, whoa, was that the screeching sound he made?
It's like we're watching some kind of asylum.
What size shoe are you taking? It's like, who gives up what size shoe you are, madam? Who are you anyway? You know, I bet you had an expensive ski suit.
I mean, what was she doing? It's the most bizarre case anyway. I mean, there's not going to be any winner. Even if she wins, she loses, right? And she wants £1 or something, and her cost base. The whole thing's preposterous. On a more serious and sad point,
Go on.
Paul O'Grady.
Oh, Piers.
I want to show a little clip. He died aged 67 overnight, suddenly. Incredibly sad, actually. He was really... I mean, there aren't many people, I think, live up to the phrase national treasure in Britain, but he's probably right up there. Let's take a little clip of Paul.
I'd sooner have Ozzy Osbourne as Chancellor. I tell you what, because at least with Ozzy, the only cuts made would be the effing and blinding from his speech, that's all. Very nice, though.
Portuguese Reds from the Alentejo, which is basically the southern half of Portugal before you get to the Algarve. Alentejo. And...
said to me, you know what, she said, when you're on...
I told you this chair's gone mad. Buster died on Thursday night. He was riddled with cancer. He had cancer in his neck, in his face, and a tumour in his leg. And the kindest thing for me to do was to let him go. But wherever you are, Bust, you're gone, but not forgotten, kid. Give him a big cheer. Come on.
Well, and that's now the case for Paul himself. He was a great entertainer, unbelievably funny, completely outrageous, a bit like you. When you spent time with Paul O'Grady, he would say the most incredible things, but always with a cackle and a laugh. Warm-hearted, incredibly good broadcaster, but had a unique ability to just make people laugh, both on camera and off.
And adore him. I'd have never met anyone that didn't adore Paul. He's just an unbelievable human being.
Loved his dogs, like you. He was a good man. And we've actually got a lot to be grateful to Paul for, or by default. It's a story not many people know, but I finished newspapers rather suddenly, and Simon Cowell came up with this idea for a talent show. And he wanted to call it Got Talent. And he went to ITV here in the UK, and they came up with putting it around a vehicle around Paul O'Grady and called it Paul O'Grady's Got Talent. So we all went down to do a pilot. Huge success. Me, Simon Cowell and Fern Britton, who was then doing This Morning on ITV. And the contestants were the audience. And it was a great hit. And ITV were going to launch this in prime time. Massive thing for Paul, massive thing for me. This was my big TV breakthrough. And then at the last minute, Paul fell out spectacularly with ITV. You and I, of course, would never behave like this.
Never.
Had a massive falling out with them, called them a bunch of petty tyrants and said, I'd rather be sweeping the streets than work for ITV, which brought an abrupt end to my dream and the show. And then Simon Cowell sold the rights to America, to NBC. They repackaged it as America's Got Talent. I went on that. You then joined it after a season. Number one show in America. And who knows, that may have never happened if Paul hadn't had a strop with ITV and walked off. And he had a great career over at, that's last on America's Got Talent with the Hoff and Harry and various others. So he was a great talent and will be greatly missed, I think, by this country.
Irreplaceable.
Yeah.
There's nobody that could, walk in his shoes. He's just an incredible human being.
Well, he was the kind of guy, I always think there's two types of broadcasting, especially for live television. There are the type that when something goes wrong, they're paralysed. They can't do anything. They just can't move. And there are the types like Paul O'Grady who would revel in stuff like falling off his chair or something going wrong. He'd find it hilarious. And he would communicate his hilarity to the audience, who would then all fall about laughing.
And
that's a real talent.
Real. That's it. That's the difference between fake and real.
Well, he's authentic. And I always think, you and I have had this discussion before, but authenticity is the key, I think, on television. If people can see through you eventually, if you try and pretend to be someone you're not, they'll see through it. And Paul was exactly what you saw on television, was what you saw when you met him.
Exactly. All heart.
Yeah. Great guy. Loved his dogs, loved his fans, loved his viewers. and he'll be greatly missed. Sharon, lovely to see you.
Love you.
He referenced Ozzy. Everyone references Ozzy. How is Ozzy?
He's good. He's doing so much better. He's I think I told you about it the other night, but now it's been announced. We can talk about it. He's doing a show October 6th in America. He's doing it's at the Coachella site.
Brilliant.
And he's there, and it's going to be a great show. Guns N' Roses, Metallica, AC/DC, Ozzy.
So the rock is still rocking.
Oh,
We haven't got to worry about Ozzy stopping rocking.
No. He never stopped. He's back.
Please send him my best.
Oh, I
it's
will.
great to hear, and it's lovely to see you.
He wants to talk to you.
Well, let's talk.
All right.
I'm available. My answering machine says if that's Ozzy, I'm here. All right?
Right.
I'd love to talk to him.
Okay.
Great to see you. Well, you'll be unsurprised to hear that the disgraced former Health Secretary Matt Hancock has disgraced himself again, as has the disgraced former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, who were both caught up by an undercover sting, agreeing to work for a fake South Korean company for thousands of pounds a day. Let's have a look at the footage from the campaign group led by donkeys.
So we were wondering, do you have a daily rate at the moment?
I do, yes. It's 10,000 sterling.
We would like to talk about arrangements of fees. I mean, do you have a daily rate?
Yeah, I mean, a yearly rate.
Yes.
I mean, I would say as an MP, obviously I don't need to earn a king's ransom, but I would do anything less than for about $10,000 a month.
And so it went unedifyingly on. MPs are allowed to have second jobs. There's no suggestion of parliamentary rule breaking, just pure greed. So should MPs actually be paid more to stop them behaving in this grasping way in the first place? Well, joining me now is the podcast host and author of An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West, Konstantin Kisin. Konstantin, welcome back to the programme. Great to do your podcast, by the way. I've had a great reaction to it. Good, bad and ugly, which is the perfect reaction to any interview.
Thanks for coming on.
When you watched all this in its full gory details, it was so gruesome to watch. And it was the usual suspects, Hancock, Kwarteng. Didn't surprise me at all that Kwarteng had very little grasp on reality of money.
I love the way he said yearly rate, like he's upselling you already. I did enjoy that.
Your takeaway from that was that you have a belief that MP should be paid a lot more money. I have to say, I sort of share that view. I sort of think if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, right? And we're paying peanuts and getting people who just seem to me to be extremely low caliber politicians. And we need to somehow raise that bar. Would money alone do that, do you think?
Well, the headline, pay them more, is what people took away from what I've been saying about this. My view is, yes, you pay them more, but you then also ban them from... You say they're allowed to have second jobs. They're allowed to have third jobs and fourth jobs and fifth jobs. So as long as the incentive structure is there, they're not getting paid a huge amount for the job that they're doing. Obviously, compared to the ordinary person, they're being paid a fair chunk of money. But compared to other people operating at the top of society. I mean, if you wanted your favourite football club to be run by someone who's very good, you'd happily pay them $3-4 million quid a year, right?
And in Singapore, they pay apparently their politicians a lot of money, millions of dollars. So they take a view that you then attract the best talent. Your country benefits. It's actually a small price to pay.
You get what you pay for. And I think with them, you have to ban the second, third and fourth jobs and so on. And you have to make sure that they put the stocks and shares in the trust where they don't get benefits from companies being traded in a certain way and whatever. But the bottom line is, Piers, you get what you pay for. And
it's interesting. I mean, on that
point, we have to get better people into Parliament.
Right. So Singapore, they get £672,000 a year for an average member of Parliament in Singapore. Spain is only £49,000, Germany £108,000, United States senators £142,000, and France just under £80,000. So I guess by comparison to most of Europe, ours get this, in the kind of middle range of that. But Singapore dramatically different, and they believe over there they really does attract a better caliber.
And that makes perfect sense to me. I just think one of the biggest problems with our politics, Piers, is people think about tribe rather than results. And if you're tribal about this, you go, well, Hancock and Kwarteng, of course. But actually, cast your mind back to the Blair government. It's not like they were all squeaky clean either. We have a system in which the incentive structure encourages politicians not to take money from us and to serve us. We have a political system where they take money from, in this case, some pretend Korean company. And who are they then serving?
It's a worrying time for Israel with America because for the first time in polling history, a majority of Democrats in America now have more sympathy for Palestinians than they do for Israelis. There's been an 11-point swing in the last year alone. That must concern you. And what also must concern you, more people aged 18 to 29 now view more sympathy with Palestinians than they do Israelis. What's your response to that?
Well, I think I've looked at other polls, but you can never deny that the alliance between Israel and America takes the majority of Americans to support Israel. And they do. They do consistently.
But that's got to concern you, hasn't it, that poll?
You know, you look at it and you say one thing. You know, America's changing not vis-a-vis Israel. America's changing vis-a-vis America.
But one of the reasons
and you've often said that.
Well, yeah.
Yes,
But
America's changing vis-a-vis America, and therefore it changes vis-a-vis Israel. But I think the main bulk of the American public, by the way, across the political spectrum, a wide berth of the political spectrum, support Israel because they see Israel as representing the values.
Right, but not Democrat supporters, and nor the young ones, 18 to 29.
Well, there's a question of where that goes and whether this pendulum doesn't swing back. You know,
one of the reasons is they cite, a lot of them apparently, your very close relationship with Donald Trump. They think that you really pivoted to him. You described him as the greatest friend Israel's ever had in the White House.
I said Israel had no greater friend in the White House. That's true, because he did some very good things. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem, recognized Jerusalem as our capital, recognized our sovereignty in the Golan Heights, and went out of this disastrous Iran deal, nuclear deal that would have paved Iran's path with gold to nuclear weapons. So yes, I appreciate it. But I always approach American presidents, whether it's
Did you take
Donald
sides
Trump.
too much with Trump?
Not at all. I never took sides.
Did you
with
align
anyone.
yourself too much?
I didn't align myself with anyone. I didn't come in as a Republican or a Democrat. I came in as an Israeli. And I have close friends among both sides of the aisle. Joe Biden, with whom I often disagree. By the way, I somehow disagreed with Trump too. I tried to tell him we should go to...
Well, he wasn't happy when you tweeted your congratulations to President Biden on winning the election.
Maybe not. But what I...
Well, he was extremely... If you don't mind me, I don't want to use a profanity in front of you, but he was heard on tape saying that it was the ultimate betrayal. He hadn't spoken to you since, and bleep him, he said about you. He then added, Bibi is Bibi. Bibi didn't want to make peace, never did.
Right. Well, I did, actually. With his help, we made a breakthrough peace, the Abraham Accords with 4 Arab states. It's a turning point in history. And if I came back, it's to do 2 things. Came back into office because, as you know, it's not walking in a rose garden to be the Prime Minister of Israel at any time, and especially this time. The reason I came back is to do 2 things. 1, block Iran's quest for nuclear weapons that aims to destroy my country and threaten every other country. And the second thing is to expand the historic Abraham Accords, the peace accords, and end the Arab-Israeli conflict. And I believe that I can do both.